A lot of people have aspirations to become a pro Overwatch player someday. This video is going to tell you what it takes and how to go from terrible to an Overwatch pro. Now, the first question that's going to pop into your mind is this even possible? You see, Overwatch has an established esports league, and with incredible players coming from many regions of the world, it might seem impossible for someone who's hard stuck whatever rank to climb to the level of becoming an esports tier player. Well, you see, with Overwatch 2 on this horizon, and it being more or less the same game, the dynamic increase in player base and the longevity of the pro scene all the way throughout the life cycle of Overwatch 2 means that it is very possible, if you put in the effort, to become pro. Now, I'm not going to be optimistic Andy, but many people have this goal, but they don't have clear, actionable steps to take from now onward in order to make this dream a reality. Now, speaking of making your Overwatch dreams a reality, at the end of the day, tools to help you improve is the most important thing, and the GameLeap website has a whopping 50% off starting your insane summer training arc. I can't wait to see your massive SR gains at the end of the summer. Now, starting off the video, whether you're already grandmaster trying to grind into tier 2 or you're a gold brig one trick, let me tell you step-by-step actions that you must take in order to go pro in Overwatch. First off, you 100% need to climb the ladder, because in order to actually be recognized, try out for teams, and ultimately get a spot on a pro team or in tier 2, you need to be at a consistent certain SR range, which is usually 4.6 plus. So climbing is your #1 goal, which works for us because that's all our channel is about. Now, the most important tool that you have for climbing is time. Time to grind consistently and time to spend dedicated playing. Now, if you have bills to pay, a wife, a child, a dog, a second wife, a sick grandmother you have to take care of, you can't be chasing this dream of being a pro. This is the #1 reason why gaming seems to have an expiration date and old boomers like me seem to age out of being competitive. Now, the presumption a lot of times is that your reflexes disintegrate as you get older, and you no longer become able to compete in a world of 14-year-old cracked Fortnite kids. But, in my opinion, this doesn't make any sense at all. You see, in regular sports, top-tier athletes still compete later in life, and it makes objectively little sense that you would age out of video games when those sports that they play require tons of high reflexes as well. Now, the true reason, in my opinion, that people age out of playing video games is they have priorities outside of gaming, and they can't commit enough to maintain a competitive state because it will take commitment. So let's get into the next core topic: how much dedication is actually required to become a pro level player. You see, the big thing that is preventing people from either improving or climbing all the way to that top tier level is players simply do not play the game enough to improve rapidly. The more hours you play, the faster you will improve. It's just as simple as that. Furthermore, a critical mass of playing day after day can allow you to push your peak higher and higher. If you play really hard for the weekend, for example, but you don't play at all in the week, tons of the time that you're spending on the weekend will just be breaking off the forming rust throughout the week. You instead need to be pushing yourself to the absolute limit of your peak performance every single day. Now, let's stop beating around the bush. How many hours are we actually talking about here? Honestly, pro players spend about 30 to 40 hours a week scrimming and playing tournaments, and another 20 hours playing ranked, going full tryhard. Not relaxed streaming, but full tryhard. Now, I would say that a minimum of 50 hours a week total game time is required to rapidly improve enough to surpass the average rate of improvement by a large enough margin. Essentially, you grinding Overwatch is going to be a legit full-time job plus overtime, but frankly, that is what it takes. Now, I told you how much time you need to dedicate, but let me tell you exactly how you can use your time most efficiently. Now, the first thing is you need to identify the role that you plan to play. And I'm not talking about arbitrary understanding of roles. I'm talking about the legitimate roles that you would be playing in scrims or in a pro match if you became a pro. Now, specialization is something that I preach on this channel a lot, and it's a huge part in how to use your hours most effectively. For example, a main healer, and I'm talking about the definition of main healer from scrims. So a main healer who primarily plays Lucio for 50 to 60 hours a week, right, will be far better than you will ever be if you play the same amount of hours as that Lucio or even more a week, but you split your playtime between all kinds of roles like tanks, DPS, supports, or in between the micro roles that I'm going to talk about. So what are the roles? Well, there are actually 6 roles in Overwatch League and Pro Play or Scrim Play. First off, there's main tank, which would be characters like Ryan, Sigma, Orisa, Winston, and sometimes even Hammond. The second role is off tank, which would be Zarya, Sigma, Diva, and Hammond. The next role would be hit scan DPS, which is any and all hit scan. Widowmaker's a huge one, McCree, Tracer's a huge one, Ashe, Sombra, Reaper, etc, etc. If it's a hit scan, you need to be able to play it. Now the fourth thing is flex or projectile DPS. Characters like Genji, Doomfist, Hanzo, Echo, Pharah, Mei, Junkrat. These are all the characters that have a sort of projectile, or they're melee characters. That is what a flex or projectile DPS is supposed to play, but as the naming suggests, these players should be more flexible than anyone else. Now the fifth one would be main healer, and this is different from the definition in ranked. A main healer in ranked is just someone who heals a lot. A main healer in scrims is fundamentally different, and it usually involves who is tracking ultimates and who's shot calling. So examples of a main healer would be Lucio, Mercy, Mora, sometimes Bap, and Brig. Now, moving on to an off healer, these would be characters like Zen, Ana, Bap, and Brig. Now, you do notice that some of these have overlap. Well, that's because meta can always change, and heroes who essentially could be in the same role could overlap as well. So, for example, a meta where Brig Bap is viable, you would have the traditional off healer playing Bap and the main healer on Brig, even though both could play both of those heroes if another hero that they were better at was also meta. So, I hope that makes sense to you. Now, also, generally, roles that shot call the most would be main tank and main healer, someone like a Lucio and the Reinhardt or the Monkey. This is because they either have a lower mechanical requirement, or the information that they can gather either being on the front or in a vantage point is far more than anyone else could have on the battlefield. Now, if you are a main tank or a main healer main and you cannot shot call and ult track well, this will be a huge mark against you when you try to enter tier 3 or even tier 2 Overwatch. Trying to climb up team play, you need to be able to shot call and ult track. Now, if you're in a role, you're expected to be flexible to all heroes in a given meta, and with changing metas, adaptability is going to be very important later on. But at first, raw skill is more important when you're climbing the ladder initially. Let me give you this example. A 4.4 Genji ranked one trick can still learn to flex to Hanzo and will probably end up being better than a 3.5k who flex to Hanzo regularly after that 4k Genji grinds a little bit on Hanzo. They know the temperament of higher ranked players, they have better fundamental understanding of the game, and it makes them more like a precious metal that can be molded to anything. So what I'm saying is, as you're climbing the ladder, you do not have to play all of the characters that you're expected to play immediately, but later on, once you already are a good player, a high level player, then flexibility and adaptability is going to be a lot more important, especially with dynamically changing metas. Now, the next thing that you 100% need is you need to build a training regimen in order to help you improve. I find players who have the most success consider improvement their actual job, and they wake up for it every single day at the same time and go through the motions like you have no other option. Like it's a 9 to 5, but it's gaming. And I know that this doesn't really sound that fun, right? You're just trying to play Overwatch for fun. Well, then this is not the route for you, if I'm being honest. Only people who try immensely hard will be able to be the best of the best. And that's what we're talking about here. Being paid to play Overwatch as a full-time job is something that you have to work for every single day, whether you're 14 or 18 or whatever age you are trying to become a pro. This is what it takes. Now, the first thing that you do when you wake up in the day is at a certain time every single day, it should be mechanical based practice around the heroes that you normally play. And this could be aiming drills, ability warm-up, Dragon Braid practice, or just playing tryout free-for-all to break off any rust. Now, in this practice time, you should be warming up and trying as hard as possible so that you can really improve mechanically. This is warming up, but also you're trying to improve your mechanical skill as well. Now, the last bit of advice I will give you is this is legitimate training, so try to take it as seriously as possible. Don't be lazy with your aim. Don't be lazy in how you're going about your training. Consider it like a legitimate workout where you're really trying to focus on a given mechanical thing that you need to work on. Now, after you fully warmed up your mechanical skill, did that for a while, you should hard grind ranked for 2 to 4 hours and either record your gameplay or save any notable codes. Now, after your lunch break, games that were particularly difficult for you should either be self-VOD or you sit down with a coach in a coach session so you can go over big mistakes and things you did incorrectly. Now, there will always be more things you can learn and there will always be less mistakes you can make, but the goal is to completely eradicate mistakes because pro players make so little little mistakes. So every single day, if you start to eradicate mistakes after mistakes after mistakes, you will profoundly improve as a player. Now, after your 1 to 2 hour training session, go back to grinding ranked and instantly try to incorporate what you learned while it's hot and fresh in your mind. Trying to incorporate it into your game will make it part of your in-game actions, and you won't even have to think about it anymore after you incorporated it a couple times. Now, after that, you could play as much as you want for the rest of the day. And this is your traditional day without scrims. This is just your traditional day that you should be grinding the ranked ladder. Now, scrims should be incorporated as soon as possible once you gain the required fundamentals. Typically, however, players who are less than the diamond rank should refer to the previous steps and rinse and repeat until they are at least diamond. Being masters is better to start, but you can definitely dabble in scrims earlier if you want to and it gets you motivated. Now, I'm not saying scrims would be unhelpful in plat or gold, but just from my personal experience, and I've been on teams at many different ranks, I've coached teams all over the place, I've sat in on coaching sessions. I think that teams that scrim at low level can learn bad habits from either bad coaches or bad teammates, and the average player tends to not take it as seriously as you want them to, which could lead to missed practices, tons of player substitution, which could ultimately just be a bigger waste of time than just grinding ranked. So that's something to keep in mind. For those of you who want to do scrims, I would highly suggest you either 1, find a group that will 100% take it seriously, or 2, just grind ranked all these hours until you get to the level that I think you should, so you can get on a much better team that wants to take it seriously and has similar aspirations to you. Now, when picking a scrim team, you should not settle for any other role besides the role you're supposed to be playing. This will happen a lot where coaches or managers or whatever will try to just assign you like, oh, I know that you're a Genji player, but can you play Widow for us? Or, hey, I know that you're a main tank player, but why not play Zarya? Or whatever. Do not settle for anything other than your role that you practice hard for. That is what's going to give you the best practice. That is what's going to make you the best player. Do not settle for anything less. And then also try to find a team that is hopefully higher average SR than you. Now, don't lie about your SR. That happens a lot. And try to make sure that players around you are honest about their SR. But if you could try to find a team where you start off as the worst member of your team and slowly learn and climb to the best member of your team, then you can use that team as a stepping stone to find better and better opportunities. Now, here's the thing. I know that a lot of you don't care about this, but integrity is going to come into play huge here. Remember, every single person you meet, whether it's a coach, a player, or whoever, can have a big impact on you personally and your opportunities moving forward. Bad attitude, uncoachability, toxic towards teammates, plus much, much more can come back and hinder your opportunities later. So just work on self-improvement, take things seriously, don't make excuses or blame others, and if your team is not a fit, just leave and find a better opportunity or a better team. So now, after all these things, your schedule is a combination of playing in scrims, playing in ranked, VOD reviews, and training. Now, you should try to play in open division or any other big tournament that you can, even if you're going to get stomped. Playing against better teams and players can help you learn, and you can also see what players are capable of and the impact that they have. And especially a game where you're up against really good players, those are great games to VOD review, to go back and analyze, see how they took advantage of your mistakes, and what things they specifically did that allowed them to roll you so bad. Now, if you incorporate all these things that I'm talking about, the long hours, the specialization, the scrims, the everything, you will start to improve incredibly quickly. Now, at first, it might be a little slow, but then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it will be exponential. Now, keep pushing yourself as hard as possible every day. When you are really in the thick of it, that is when you will improve the most rapidly. You're just playing nonstop. You're hitting peak after peak after peak, and you just keep going and keep going. That is how you improve incredibly quickly. Now let's talk about the things that you need to stop doing right now unless you want to hinder your improvement and hinder your progress at making this dream a reality. The first thing you need to stop doing is stop smurfing. Now, this will perpetually keep you in bad habits. If you want to rank up at alt, play it fully try hard and climb it instantly. But honestly, just pushing your one account hard is the best. I would not suggest smurfing at all. I would not suggest playing with lower level teammates. You can play with them in a different game, but smurfing teaches you bad habits because everything you do on a Smurf account is not applicable when playing at the higher levels. And the things that you can get away with better healers, better tanks, better DPS at the higher levels, you can't get away with at the lower levels. So it's just teaching you poorly on both ends. Now, the next thing you need to stop doing, and this one might be a little bit hard for you, but I'm honest about this, stop playing other shooters. Especially FPS shooters will mess you up dramatically. You should focus on your Overwatch mechanics primarily. And for instance, when I go and grind Valorant for like a week, when I come back to Overwatch, my aim is awful. And just playing that automatically creates a whole bunch of rust, which is less time that I could be improving. I'm not trying to go pro or anything, but you see how if you are, and you spend all this time playing other games, you're really going to be messing up your mechanical aim. Now, if you do need some type of break, I would highly suggest you play a game that is non-mechanical oriented. You can play a game like Magic the Gathering or whatever, not as something that is a first-person shooter. Now, the third thing is do not play anything outside of your role. Every role has overlap and enough tools to make it work in ranked. Do not filter things outside your role because even if you win, it's not going to be viable in a scrim setting, and you want to be able to have the most impact on the characters that you are playing in your role. Even if the scenarios aren't best for it, that will actually make you a better player at your given characters. Now let's give you some final takeaways to set you up for success on that bronze to pro climb. The first thing I'd suggest is watch Overwatch League players stream or just watch their games. And when you watch streams or whatever, notice what they do and how they do it. Notice why they make each decision. Notice the level of their mechanical skill. These are the players that you have to compete with. So you really should be watching what they're doing and using them to help you improve far quicker than they did. You see, all these players that are already pro and already high level, they kind of set the mold that we can follow, right? They had to walk and create the path, but for us that come afterwards, we can learn far quicker than they ever did because we have the tools to do so when they never did. Just like your average PhD in mathematics knows more than Albert Einstein did, just because they were insane for their time doesn't mean that the next upcoming generation can't use what they learned and apply it to themselves and also find a way to improve past that. Now, the second thing is don't get discouraged if you don't see results right away. Once you break the dam, so to speak, you will start to perform things and make in-game decisions you never could have done before. Now, the last thing, of course, is that there's more tools for you to climb on GameLeap.com. So head on over, and specifically our VOD reviews are going to be incredibly helpful for those of you who don't have private coaching or anything like that. So all you got to do is click the link right now and get that 50% off. Now, if you have any questions about this is something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and I do think that if you are actually dedicated to this is something that is entirely possible. But if you need any clarification on anything, definitely let me know in the comments down below. That's all I got for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time,